thanks for checking your WhatsApp as well when I sent that message. I'm ready. Oh my goodness, it's time. Do you want me to go out there? Have you got a loudspeaker? I don't know, I might actually do both. So, can I give you one of those?
If you start with that, I'll just say this.
Grab another one from there. And then Phil's got one too. Sometimes it takes... Oh, we've lost the screen.
Is it a 1:15 start?
Yes.
I'll just double check the date. So you're still wrangling everybody to come in. Sorry.
That's okay. Come on in, everyone. We're about to start panel 2.
Brittany's got one. You want the green one? All right, you take the green one.
On stage.
Do you care to swap me?
Shall I come in and help?
All right, nice people. And others, and those who don't identify as nice people. I mean, I think you're all nice people. Welcome back. We're in the right spot. You're in the right spot. And all I'm here to do is to get you to rejoin. We've got a lot of stuff going on this afternoon, but to get you oriented to what happens next, we have Brittany Polott. Yes. This is a tractable crowd. I like that a lot. All right, Brittany, it's all you.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed your lunch. We are here for panel number 2. We have some amazing people to continue our trend from the morning. We will start with Kathryn Koromilas talking about Stoic Sonnets, the poem as philosophical practice. So please welcome Kathryn.
Hope you had a great lunch, everyone. You look like you made some friends as well. So here I am, Stoic Sonnets, the poem as philosophical practice. My name is Kathryn Koromilas. 10 years ago, I came to Stoicism with a notion about death. I believed that death was a supremely bad thing. I believed that it was unfair that I, as a human mortal being, should have to have mortality. Sometimes I believed that maybe, just maybe, I would be the exception, that I would be the one human being amongst all of you that would not ever die. Mostly, however, I was terrified that I would die. In fact, die before I was ready, before I had really started to live my life, before I had properly completed everything I wanted to do and be in life. With these warped notions of death, my life had become terrible, because for me, death was terrible and death was to blame. Epictetus taught, and shout out to his student Arian of Nicomedia, who transcribed his lectures so faithfully and meticulously for us. Epictetus taught that people are disturbed not by things, but by the principles and notions which they form concerning things. Death, for instance, is not terrible. It was as if Epictetus was speaking to me. Death, for instance, is not terrible, Kathryn, or it would have appeared so to Socrates. No, the terror consists in your notion of death, that it is terrible. Everyone, the way I have supported myself with these sorts of disturbances of my mind, with my warped notions, has always been with writing. Over the years, I've explored and experimented with ways of writing that might support my Stoic practice, my Stoic training, and I've created and facilitated writing workshops and programs and invited others to do Stoic writing experiments with me. I love finding creative ways to engage with the words and teachings of Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca. My latest curiosity is the sonnet, a small, compact poem that was born in Italy in the 13th century as the sonetto, a little song exploring themes of love and time and death, eternity. The sonnet then travelled to England in the 16th century, where the Elizabethans wrote sonnets to work through and resolve disturbances of the self in conflict. And finally, the sonnet arrived to me as the perfect form for my Stoic practice. So let me show you. I want you to imagine the sonnet as a square field. Now, this description of the sonnet as a square field comes from the poet Don Patterson in his introduction to 101 Sonnets. Highly recommended. Now you step into the field, and with you, you bring any warped or unhelpful notion you have about death, life, anything at all that is causing you grief, and you work through the problem until you get to the far end of the field. So you walk in with notion one, the unhelpful notion, and you walk to the far end of the field. And at the end of the far end of the field, you now have a different notion about death, life, anything at all that is causing you grief, a more helpful notion, a notion based on reality, a notion that is in accordance, as the Stoics say, with the natural way of things. So how do you get to the far end of the field? Well, the sonnet is typically a 14-line poem, although not all sonnets are 14 lines. So let's say that you get 14 steps from the beginning of the field to the end of the field. And because the sonnet originated as a musical form, the little sonetto, the little song, sonnets historically have a specific beat pattern which translates to about 10 syllables per line. So ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. But you know what? You can take or leave all of that stuff, all the rules, as many sonneteers do today, and you can experiment with what works for you. However, there is one signature feature of the sonnet that I argue we must keep for our Stoic practice. It is the volta, or the turn. So literally, the turn. The volta typically appears past the halfway point of the square field of the sonnet, and the volta marks a shift in the development of the sonnet, of the poem. A change of mind occurs, a change of heart, a different, a more helpful notion emerges, a counter-argument is formed, a resolution is made. Imagine walking or writing through the square field of the sonnet. So literally, imagine walking through the sonnet. The thoughts around death. Death is bad, death is terrible. It's not coming on it's not being recorded, is it? But that's okay. I'll do it like this, hopefully. Okay, so imagine you're walking through the square field of the sonnet, feeling really bad about death. And at one point, you pause, you turn around, and you interrogate your initial warped notion around death. You start paying attention to what is going on in your head. You zoom in on that opening warped notion that you're carrying, and you start interrogating it and piercing through it. You do a reality check, whatever you need to do to get to the far end of the field. Okay, so that's my brief overview of the sonnet. That's basically my thinking about it. That's how it works for me in terms of what I'm proposing today as a possible Stoic practice for you. I'm going to take a quick pause because I want to very swiftly shout out to the two thinkers whose investigations of ancient writing practices have guided my own practice of writing as a Stoic practice. So, shout out to Pierre Hadot. In Philosophy as a Way of Life, he includes a chapter on spiritual exercises, and there are two quick things to note. One, he uses the word spiritual practice rather than philosophical practice, because if you think about it, hearing the word philosophical, it feels like it fits up here, it sits up here on your head, in your head. Whereas spiritual exercises point to more than just thinking about the Stoic teachings. They rather suggest a transformation, not just of the way you're going to think about things, death, impermanence, but about how you will be in the world, who you will be in the world, what you will do. So it's a complete sort of psychic transformation. The second point really quickly is that writing is part of a broader philosophical training program, and you can read more about that, and I encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to go to a Philosophy as a Way of Life spiritual exercises chapter. Moving on, Foucault is the second shout out. And investigating ancient Greek and Roman writing practices, Foucault noted that writing was used as a tool for the training of the self by one's own self. So writing was the tool used to constitute or shape the self. So we're not writing about ourselves, although we may start there with our own personal warped notions. We're writing to shape ourselves. We're not necessarily focused on the end product either, on how brilliant our sonnet might be and whether the New Yorker might publish it, although go forth. But we're focusing on the work of stepping into and through and getting to the far end, of shaping the self, of becoming the self who can step into the square field and get to the far end. So when you next return to the primary text of Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, you'll be able to see how writing is a self-shaping, a self-becoming tool. In meditations, you can literally witness the emperor training and shaping himself by writing down what has already been said by Epictetus and some others, and then rewriting and re-expressing and reformulating as a way of returning and training his mind, as a way of shaping himself. Okay, but you say, Kathryn, we still have a sonnet to write. So I am going to, in order to illustrate how you might work with the sonnet form, I'm going to use a Stoic's writing. So I'm going to pop into a letter written by Seneca. I'm going to choose one of the letters of the hundreds that he wrote to Lucilius. I'm going to walk you through the contents of that letter, and we'll follow his philosophical moves or steps in the letter, and then I'm going to use those moves or steps to construct a sonnet, just to illustrate how you might also construct a sonnet. So the letter I'm going to choose, in fact, most of those letters, all of those letters he wrote to Lucilius were written towards the end of his life. So Seneca is in his late 60s, and, death is on his mind. So we're going to dive into one of my favorite letters, letter number 12. It's, about old age, death, and a lovely theory around dying every day. So let's dive in. In this letter, he works through his concerns around getting old and death. So he begins this letter by reporting that he goes to visit a villa of his. Now, this is not the villa he's talking about in letter number 12. I'm going to use this one, but I just want you to imagine this villa in a really bad state. It's dilapidated, it's crumbling down, the trees are shriveling, everything looks pretty shocking. So Seneca, let's bring Seneca on the scene. I'm going to use the John Malkovich Seneca from the movie a couple of years ago because, firstly, John Malkovich, love of my life, but also Seneca, totally Seneca. So, John Malkovich for us today. When he sees his villa in a state of disrepair, he does what every temporarily insane human being will naturally do. He blames the estate manager for neglect and carelessness. And then, of course, rightly so, he gets angry. He gets very, very angry at the estate manager. But the estate manager tells him that the villa is old, and old buildings crumble. And he continues to say that the trees are also old, dear Seneca, and old trees tend to look a bit gnarly and often drop their leaves. But Seneca remembers overseeing the construction of the villa, and he remembers seeing the first green leaves grow on the young saplings. At this point, he realizes that he's not angry at the estate manager at all, but that in the aging villa and the dying trees, he sees his own aging and dying self. So that's a classic Stoic move. When you get angry, everyone else is to blame, but when you go back to Epictetus and sit by yourself with a cup of coffee in the morning, suddenly it's like, oh, my judgments, my notions about things are a bit warped, let me work on that. So this external, outward pointing blame turns inward, and this is what we see Seneca doing here. Next, he expresses this real fear that, what does the future hold for me if structures from my own era are already falling apart? So he's really turning in on himself and realizing that this anger that he has around the dilapidated building and the carelessness of the manager is really about his own fear about aging and dying. He has a moment of reflection. Death, however, he said, should be faced by young and old alike. We are not called according to our year of birth. So he takes that step outward towards what is natural. Well, death is natural, or not only that, it's going to happen to everybody, regardless of whether we're old or young. Death's going to come for us all, so he doesn't need to take it so personally. So that's a really nice move, bringing in just what's natural. Finally, he says, this old villa has done me a favor. It has made me aware of my age. So he recognizes that that experience, that paying attention to what the world is looking like, offers him a moment of reflection. And finally, he introduces a theory, and I'm going to invite you to go to letter 12 and read it. It's from Heraclitus. It's a sort of Stoic philosophy around time, that only the present moment is real. The past is just a memory of a past time, and the future is anticipation of the future, so it's the present moment. And he constructs this very beautiful theory around living one day, and that being a complete life. So he concludes the letter saying, therefore, every day ought to be lived as if it ended the series and if it completed and fulfilled our existence. So he's gone from anger to a kind of reflective, wise stance. And I'm just going to pause here for a moment so you can all see what a Stoic face probably looks like. That calm, peaceful demeanor. There's a tiny, tiny, sweet little smile on his face, or maybe I'm the only one that can see that. And this look beyond, there's a kind of sort of transcendent look, that he's moved beyond the concerns of himself, his ego, and stepped into understanding, sort of having a more expansive view around mortality, the idea that it is natural. Okay, so let's go over the moves that he makes in this letter, and then I'm going to use this to write a sonnet, and we'll see how it goes. So 1, my house is crumbling, the trees are shriveled, I am angry, it's his fault. Next, everywhere I look, I see evidence of my advancing age. Next, what does the future hold for me if structures from my own era are falling apart? Next, this old villa has done me a favor. It has made me aware of my age. But it is brutal to be facing death. Death, however, and this is where the Volta comes in, that turn. Death, however, should be faced by young and old alike. We are not called according to our year of death. And finally, he typically brings in another voice. In this case, it's Heraclitus. One day is equal to every day. Therefore, every day ought to be lived as if it ended the series, as if it completed and fulfilled our existence. So, back to the square field of the sonnet. He starts off being angry, needs to get to the far field of the sonnet with some sort of new notion that is both based in reality and therapeutic. And he does this by inevitably hitting that Volta, changing his mind, turning back and viewing and interrogating and noticing what's going on with his warped, angry notion. He uses keywords like yet, death, however. These are terms, technical terms that you can use to kind of get you to that Volta when you find that you're stuck in some warped notion. This is the sonnet that I constructed. I'm going to read it to you from this slide. This house, which youthful eye built with local stone, now crumbling, tumbling down, it's that man's fault. My trees, myself planted, and first leaf grown, shriveled and parched, that man I will assault with anger, rightly so. Old house, old trees, old me, I'm angry, rightly so. What does the future hold for mortal me when home's as old as me? For, oh, vertigo. Wherever I turn, I see signs of death. It's brutal. Yet, old like me, young like you, we will all be called to die. Old house, old trees, my teachers say, one day is every day. So live, just live. And when you fall to sleep, say you're dead, say you've lived, and be complete. Thank you. We did it.
Thank you, Kathryn. Beautiful. Very impressive. And I'm sure there are some questions. Maybe you just want to say an expression of admiration for this beautiful sonnet. Any questions or comments? We've got about 5 minutes. We're all speechless.
Which one, the layout? This one? And just the yet there, if you can see it sort of like 6th line down, that's the Volta. That's where I'm looking back and kind of presenting the counter argument, bringing in reality and maybe another philosopher to help. If there are no, yeah.
I was just going to ask myself, Can you tell us a bit how you actually sat down and composed the lines?
This Seneca poem, the sonnet?
Right, the one you just shared. So you immersed yourself in the attitudes he expressed in the letter, and then...
I literally just read the letter, pulled out certain fragments, and I should mention, of course, I was working with the Margaret Graver translation. So this is basically what you'd call a found sonnet. So I found this sonnet in the Seneca letter. And I should also say that I don't expect you to do this, but rather this was an illustration of how you might create your own sonnet with your own concerns. Although if you feel it's interesting enough to do it from sort of a Stoic text, that would be fun. But I think the challenge here and the invitation really is to take a warped thought and give yourself one square 14 lines to get to a better thought. And a bit of context, I come from being a very strong and relentless ruminator. So in the past, I could journal on a concern around death for pages and pages and pages. And I don't think we have time to spend so much time on a warped notion. I think the more you practice turning and getting to that Volta quicker, it can help an argument in the family home. It can just get you back to work and be happier. So basically, it's a really nice container to practice interrogating your notions.
And this ties into metanoia, which is one of your specialties. Could you say a few words about that?
Technical question, that's a hard one. So metanoia is a term which literally means changing your mind. Pierre Hadot, I feel that's a hard question for me to answer right now. And I think it just needs so much background. But metanoia essentially means changing your mind. So, as soon as you pay attention to a thought process that is not being helpful in the moment, have you ever noticed that sometimes you might get angry, rightly so, because something's going on, and then your judgments around what's going on then feed the anger and make it worse? I think there's at that point that you can intervene with some sort of either journaling exercise, writing exercise that can help you turn away from that and get back on track. So that's metanoia, really, just a kind of turning around.
So it's the Volta.
It's the Volta, yeah. And typically the word metanoia, it brings in the whole Christian framework, so it's a big question, but yeah. Thanks for asking that question.
All right, thank you so much, Kathryn.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm now very pleased to introduce our next panelists, Duff Lambros, also known as Karen Duffy or simply Duff, and her longtime writing partner, Francis Gasparini. We are very fortunate to have them here today from California and New York, talking about an aspect of Stoicism that we often don't talk about. So we're very excited to bring this to everyone's attention today and tie it into the arts. So a little bit of Stoic humor. So please help me welcome Duff and Francis.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. We want to say thank you to our hosts and thank you to everyone here for joining us today. I'm still setting up.
Yep. This is the physical comedy part.
Voila. So, you ready?
I'm ready. So the title of our presentation today is Humor is a Stoic Virtue, and Phil Yanov remarked on Substack that it was, how did you put it, was one of the more surprising events of today. And him putting it that way was surprising to us because for us, humor is kind of inextricably associated with the way we think about Stoicism and practice it. It's like the way, a fish doesn't know that water is wet. To us, Stoicism and humor are kind of the same thing.
Exactly, and the beautiful people of Stoic Arts Conference were way ahead of the curve when they asked us to present on humor and Stoicism. Just this week, Oprah, the Oracle of Montecito, selected the novel Go Gentle as this month's title. It's a comedic story about a Stoic philosopher who's renowned for her translation of Epictetus. Sounds kind of familiar, like someone we're going to hear from later. And for Francis and me, we met on the Emmy-winning comedy series TV Nation. We've written 4, going on 5 books, all centered on Stoic wisdom. As collaborative writers, we work together every day, and we don't split things 50-50. Francis and I give 100% all the time, except when giving blood.
Our very first collaboration on TV Nation was a story called Johns of Justice, and the Johns are exactly what you think they are. It was about bathroom equality, how there are never enough toilets for women. Women are always waiting in line while men breeze in and out. And so to kind of dramatize this in a humorous way, we put 6 porta potties on a flatbed truck.
18-wheeler.
18-wheeler, excuse me. And rolled them up to places where women were waiting in line for the bathroom. Broadway shows, movie theaters, sporting events, and more seriously, at companies where women were not provided with a bathroom to go to work in, when they were at work. Silly idea, serious problem. This to us is the Stoic practice of justice.
People often come to Stoicism in times of chaos and calamity. Things aren't going well, you need a framework to cope, and Stoicism is excellent for that. And this lands true for me. I developed a lesion the size of a baseball in my brain. It was so large that it destroyed the nerves in my central nervous system, causing complex regional pain syndrome. It's the most painful condition known in medical science. The sensation is equal to getting a finger amputated without anesthesia. As you can see, I often have to hold my shirt just off my neck. Living with chronic intractable pain has been challenging, and I rediscovered the incandescent wisdom of Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus in the hospital. They taught me acceptance. Stoic wisdom guided me to mourn for my old life and figure out a whole new life. So right now as I'm here, it feels like I am wearing a turtleneck made out of hornet stings. But I've always had a sense of humor, and it doesn't desert me. I would look at the expiration date of the carton of milk, and I'd aim to outlive it, which was my dairy case version of Memento Mori. I would hide a remote control fart machine in my hospital room, and you could not trust me when I had my finger on the power button. As Lord Byron said, always laugh when you can. It's cheap medicine.
So for us, a useful way that we think about it is that Stoicism is how we understand the world, and humor is how we navigate it. Stoicism teaches us that there are externals, there are indifferents that simply don't matter, and humor helps us to identify those and put them in perspective. And part of the reason we are so enthusiastic about humor as part of our lives and part of our Stoic practice is that a lot of life, and sometimes Stoicism, is a sort of eat your vegetables approach to teaching and sharing these teachings. And when we work together, it's not like that at all. We kind of come at it the opposite way. What we'll usually do is, we'll tell each other a joke, or often a funny story that we saw in the newspaper or online, and we joke and we riff around that, and always in there we find our way to a Stoic principle to talk about.
Exactly. When we're writing, we talk about eating your vegetables to avoid being too dry and serious. And if you overheard our daily writing sessions, you would believe we work in a delicatessen. Like, cut the ham. That's too cheesy. We talk a lot about bologna. We write about Stoicism the way you give your golden retriever his worm medicine. We wrap up our thesis in liverwurst. And on the topic of deli meats, I find it incredible that the most advanced material in the universe is right where you keep your head. Your brain is made of the same stuff as what's in the cold cut drawer of your refrigerator. Your brain is fat, water, protein, carbs, and salt. That is the recipe for hot dogs. It's a miracle. A gigantic 3-pound hot dog in your head does all the thinking. And in Ranjana's talk, she spoke about how she called the mind a wish-fulfilling jewel. Well, we call it a big old hot dog.
Yes. So, we touched on this a little bit earlier, but, in our collaboration, a big part of it is that we don't take credit for anything. We often don't know who wrote something. I'll say, Duff, that was hilarious what you came up with. And she'll say, no, that you wrote that. And I'm like, no, you. And, that's just how it works, And we do have an incredible time writing together, which is part of why our collaboration has been so strong. And there's a lot of laughter, as you can imagine. And Duff's son, Jack, would hear her on the, we work via FaceTime and Google Docs because we're in different cities. And so he would hear his mother laughing and cackling in her office. And then he would say to her, Mom, it's not fair. That's like cheating. If I tried to work that way at school, I'd get in trouble. Mm-hmm. But with the humor always brings us back to Stoicism. That's always at the core of what we do.
So one of the things we have up here.
What happened to our?
I don't know. All right, never mind. No, that's not it. We knew the other. Could we have our technical? Thank you.
It's so funny, I don't know how to use tech.
Sorry about that, Phil. Zeus.
You guys are doing fine.
Okay, you got that?
We're
Okay.
doing fine.
Okay, there you go.
There we go.
Okay, great. So we took the image of the Stoics and set them up as the Beatles on Abbey Road. And we've got Epictetus where George Harrison was, because Epictetus is my main man, and George Harrison is my favorite Beatle. They both had a reputation for being philosophical, and both had a sense of humor. Epictetus said, if someone speaks badly about you behind your back, he didn't know all your other thoughts, or he would have gossiped about them too. And Harrison said, if we knew we were going to be the Beatles, we would have tried a lot harder. This is sly humor.
The Stoics had some thoughts about humor, and some approving, some not. Cicero said that there's vulgar, low, obscene humor, and there's elevated, refined humor, and that we should prefer the latter. But I think that Marcus Aurelius disagreed, because he famously, or perhaps infamously, said of some very, very, very rich man that he had so many possessions that he had no room to poop, which is, quite the view from above.
I do not wish to see that view from above. And did Marcus Aurelius say that?
He did say that. He used a saltier word, but I think there are younger people in the audience, so
Okay.
We'll keep this PG.
Well, thank you for that. Seneca's belief, it's better to laugh than lament it, inspired Francis and I to create a whole new pain scale. So this is the Wong-Baker Faces chart, which was originally created to help kids describe their pain level. You've probably seen it in a doctor's office. This is the universal scale for kids and adults to rate their pain. And we decided, yes, this is a great tool, but we could use an updated version. This one's pediatric, and when you live with a chronic condition, you can feel infantilized. So we asked America's sweetheart, Bill Murray, to help us reframe pain. And Bill actually studied Stoicism. After the success of Ghostbusters, he didn't want to be a Hollywood jackass, so he moved to France and studied philosophy at the Sorbonne. And in a tribute to Bill and his wisdom, we made this. And what I love about it is that every level on the pain, it starts with, you're awesome. Because pain is something that happened to you. And the extent to which you suffer, well, that's on us, as the Stoics taught. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional.
What would you say your level is today?
I would say I'm awesome. But she's on a cracker, this hurts.
Okay, excellent. I would say I'm at a 2, only because I have nagging lower back pain, so this smarts.
Okay, great. Seneca asked, quips of a clown? I don't ask. I don't have to look far. I can laugh at myself.
Self-deprecating humor is really kind of at the essence of Stoic humor, we think. One way people say that today, if you're familiar, is punching up, not punching down, or punching yourself in the face. And if you look on dating sites and surveys of what people that want in a partner, the number one thing is always humor. They want somebody with a sense of humor. So if this is so important to us as humans, then shouldn't philosophy also study humor, traffic in humor, be humorous?
Exactly. On dating sites, women want men who make them laugh, and men want women who laughed at their jokes. So humor is intertwined with mating prowess. Stoic philosophy, perhaps less so. Humor is imagination having fun. Humor and Stoicism serve as social radar, telegraphing intelligence and problem solving. And so is philosophy.
And we've heard people talk about the lowercase Stoic versus the uppercase Stoic. The Stoics were not lowercase Stoic. They lived good lives. They enjoyed them. Importantly, they were part of vibrant communities. They probably did not have live, laugh, love signs in their house, but
The Stoics taught primitatio malorum, the deliberate contemplation of the worst possible outcomes. They did this not to cause despair, but to diffuse it. Dark comedy does the same thing. Jokes about death, illness, and failure drag the spooky things into the light and say, look how small it is, this puny thing. This is why gallows humor exists in hospitals, war zones, and funerals. The Stoic and the comedian are standing in front of the same burning world. The Stoic finds peace, the comedian finds a punchline, and most of the time, they're the same thing. Stoicism is the straight man, and the comedian is us.
And Stoic humor is not about, Carrot Top with his props, or the amazing Jonathan with his magic tricks, or Gallagher with a mallet and a watermelon. Stoic humor is about appreciating life's absurdity. You don't have to be a joke teller to have a great sense of humor. And we think Stoicism brings you to that.
Exactly. Marcus Aurelius sat alone in a military camp and wrote, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing." He got the joke. When something goes wrong and you find it funny rather than catastrophic, you've performed the central Stoic operation. You have refused to assign it the power to destroy your equilibrium. You looked at the obstacle and declined to be defined by it. The laugh is evidence that the exercise worked.
So, Seneca laughed. Epictetus had a dry wit. Marcus was not exactly writing New Yorker pieces, but his sort of world-weary outlook often tips into a kind of dark comedy. And of course, we know that Chrysippus died laughing, so.
I don't know what's so funny about a donkey eating figs.
You had to be there.
The growing popularity of Stoicism these days means that, of course, a lot of people are trying to make a buck off it. For the modern Stoics, there is no end to Stoic branded gewgaws. And we went shopping and found some things that we found absolutely barking mad and hilarious. For instance, the Marcus Aurelius room spray. This is, we found this online, and yes, your home can possess the musty fragrance of an Antonine Plague scented campaign tent.
Absolutely real product, folks. Absolutely real. Here we have Stoic Beauty Anti-Aging Oil Serum, something which clearly embodies memento mori. You know, when you stop aging, you're dead. So is that what this does? I don't know.
This may be my favorite. It's the Smells Like Stoicism candle. And it's unscented. So I don't know what that means. Okay, now comes the fashion part of our presentation. Just one second.
Here you go.
Okay. You may not have known this, but you can buy Marcus Aurelius Hawaiian shirts. And the quality of these are the Marcus Aurelius Hawaiian shirts, which I'm going to give to Phil, but it's insane. It's Marcus Aurelius with sunglasses. And yeah, these were two of the quieter ones. But, we want to raffle these off. Okay, so for the Marcus Aurelius room spray, let's see, does anybody have a birthday coming up? Okay, that guy. All right, here you go. All right, well, we'll bring these up to you. Okay?
When's yours?
Okay.
Okay, does, who here came the farthest? Anybody come from ancient Greece?
Oh, but this is a new, happy birthday, but this is for the people who came the farthest. China? How'd you get here? For the conference, I mean, yes. Okay, too many questions, somebody else.
Anybody come from the West Coast?
Okay, that guy. Okay, you get the candle.
California,
Okay.
wait, where? Okay, where did you come from? Switzerland.
Okay, he gets this Marcus
think
Aurelius
Switzerland.
scented candle. Okay, thank you very much. And Phil, I'm going to give this to you.
And Brittany, this one's for you. Please don't forget to rate and review us.
Don't go anywhere. People might have some questions for you. All right, so thank you again so much to Duff and Francis for making us laugh, helping us celebrate the absurdity of life. I just wanted to mention, if you haven't read their book, Wise Up, go out and buy it. It's amazing. This is written as a series of letters to Duff's son, Jack, and just has so much wisdom presented in a very humorous and entertaining way, which of course you've seen already. But definitely go get the book, and you can also read more of their writing at sentiday.com, which is their website. So highly recommend that. Does anybody have any questions or comments for these two? Oh, yeah.
Love your shoes, first of all. So I know you guys are both from the industry. Did you come to Stoicism via humor? What was the journey? Did you always kind of have like a Stoic bent, and then you found Stoicism officially, and then you incorporated humor? How did that all happen?
I studied philosophy in college, and when I was in my early 30s, I got this catastrophic degenerative neurological illness. And so I got sick, and went back, I remembered getting so much consolation from reading meditations that then we went into a deep dive. And Francis and I were writing partners on a comedy show then.
Yeah, and I came to Stoicism through Duff, really.
Other questions? Sure. For the recording.
Yeah, well, so you said that Seneca was, Epictetus was George. I was wondering if you had, like, for the other three Beatles, which ones were they?
Okay, well, okay. Seneca's John, and Paul is Marcus Aurelius, and Zeno's Ringo? Is that, what do you want?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but thank you.
Yes, tomorrow is Marcus Aurelius' birthday, so that's part of the reason we wanted to have the conference at this time. Happy birthday, Marcus.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
Other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you again so much to Duff and Francis. You brightened our day. All right, I believe we have a break now, and we will come back in about 15 minutes.
We want to bring it back. The break is over at 2:30.
All right, see you then.
2:30. Little extra time. They were super happy.
that into a PowerPoint.
Picture of Billy's head, or Billy. Wait, what? Billy Evans? I was saying Billy.
Okay. I guess we're just doing the sound check with like everyone around us. I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick.
setting up the talk mics.
Okay. Are we gonna do the? I guess we don't know how the Q&A is going to do it.
I don't know. It's your presentation.
Well, yeah, but that's.
We have until what?
I just think in terms of like in the same. Yes. And for the credentials, you do it from here. You use these mics and then they'll have something running around. And I would say every time that whenever you're not using the mic, switch it off. When you're ready, you can switch it on. So it's count to three. Okay. Is that? You will sound very different to you as your mic. Yes. Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah. Testing, testing.
All right. Hello, hello, hello. Checked out. Here we go. All right, you are in the right room at the right time. How are we doing? I'd like to hear that we're doing pretty good. Is that a whoop is good? And how about the rest of the event, not just my shirt? How are things going? So, I mean, you guys, I am brightly caparisoned at this point, right? Like a horse. Tracy, is that a question? Oh, look at that, a callback from my own group. Nothing terrible has befallen any of us today, which is pretty awesome. All right, we're here. Thank you for being part of all. Oh, you know what I mean? I did mean to do one thing, and I know this is probably not the best time to do it, but I wanted to get a picture of you. So I'm just going to span across. By the way, hold on, let me get the picture first. Yeah, you can smile, you can, there we go, there's more of those. How many of you are on Facebook? Wrong answer, all of you now. So, it's not true, but it might show up somewhere. Welcome back. Thank you for being part of this thing. I am, one more time, going to thank Melinda Latour and Brittany Polott and Kathryn Koromilas for putting all of this together. This is a show. All right, next up, who do we have? It's the Ben Papsun Jazz Duo, which is Ben Papsun. He's right there. And Nigel Regan. There you go. Oh, I'm going to do this because you did it right now. My wife finally showed up, and son. I'm glad to have them. I'm glad you're here. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ben Papsun Trio. Duo.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? So it is my great pleasure to be here today. This is a very special little performance that we have planned for you because it's quite ad hoc, since I myself am not well acquainted with the Stoic tradition, but I was asked to come up with something for this event, and I gave it some reflection, and I, especially as you would have heard from Melinda's talk at the very beginning of the day, there are some very interesting overlaps between music and some of the values and virtues of Stoicism, and I think this is especially true in the case of jazz, so I want to talk about some of those overlaps today. And so we're going to perform in a bit, but I'm going to sort of set the stage with a couple of philosophical claims about what it is that we're actually doing up here. And so the first one is this. It's that, well, actually both claims are under the umbrella of the central idea that jazz is a philosophical practice. And so the first reason for this is because it requires a Stoic adjacent control of and reflectiveness toward emotion. So that's what we're going to be hopefully showing in the first segment of our performance. And also because it requires the virtuous organization of artistic ideas in response to contingency and change. So these are two fundamental aspects of jazz and the jazz tradition. And so I have some quotations for those of you who have a handout that are going to sort of guide us through thinking about these connections. And the first way that I want to think through this idea of emotional management or taking emotional experience and transcending it with some kind of artistic practice is with this quote from Frederick Douglass, where he's describing the travel of enslaved peoples in the mid-1800s on their way to a plantation, and he's describing their music that they sing. And he says, "They would compose and sing as they went along, consulting neither time nor tune. They would sometimes sing the most pathetic sentiment in the most rapturous tone, and the most rapturous sentiment in the most pathetic tone. I have sometimes thought that the mere hearing of these songs would do more to impress some minds with the horrible character of slavery than the reading of whole volumes of philosophy on the subject could do." So what I want to point out about this quotation is the way that Douglass is quite literally placing the Black musical tradition alongside the aspirations and content of the philosophical tradition. And so this is kind of a starting point for how I want to think about these things together. And then as I was doing a little bit of cursory research into Stoicism for this presentation, a few quotes stuck out to me. And so one is from Marcus Aurelius, who many of you are very familiar with. I am not very familiar with, but he says, "I learned from Maximus to command myself and not to be too much drawn towards anything, to be full of spirits under sickness and misfortune." And this is exactly what the blues is, the foundation of jazz, is to be full of spirits under sickness and misfortune. And along similar lines, there's this quote from Hegel where he says, "Stoicism is the freedom which ever comes directly out of the sphere of bondage and returns back into the pure universality of thought." The important thing here for me is it is a freedom which can come on the scene as a general form of the world's spirit only in a time of universal fear and bondage, a time too when mental cultivation is universal and has elevated culture to the level of thought. So I know this is a fairly dense quotation, but the crucial aspect here is mental cultivation and taking a cultural form and elevating it to the level of thought. So that's what we're going to do together. And so you can also see in this quote from Ralph Ellison a very similar notion to what Marcus Aurelius says, right? He says, that the blues is an impulse to keep the painful details and episodes of a brutal experience alive in one's aching consciousness, to finger its jagged grain and to transcend it, not by the consolation of philosophy, but by squeezing from it a near-tragic, near-comic lyricism. As a form, the blues is an autobiographical chronicle of personal catastrophe expressed lyrically. So this is a beautiful definition of the blues. A chronicle of personal catastrophe lyrically expressed. And so while I may or may not identify myself as a Stoic, I think there is a significant overlap between the way that Ellison is describing what the blues means and what it would mean to have an emotional experience that allows you to organize your thoughts as opposed to being overwhelmed by that emotion. And so I want you to kind of keep these quotes in the back of your head, but we're going to start out with a very famous blues number, a traditional tune called St. James Infirmary, which probably some of you have heard before. And if we look at the lyrics, we see very clearly a confrontation with death, right? Which many have talked about today, the inevitability of passage from the earth and the fleeting nature of the things that we acquaint ourselves with and that we hold dear, right? And so the lyrics are, I went down to the St. James Infirmary, saw my baby there stretched out on a long white table, so cold, so sweet, so fair. So the narrator sees his deceased lover. Let her go, God bless her, wherever she may be. She can look this wide world over, she'll never find a sweet man like me. When I die, want you to dress me in straight lace shoes, box back coat and a Stetson hat. Put a $20 gold piece on my watch chain so the boys will know that I died standing pat. So the experience of the bereaved lover, which is kind of a complicated bereavement because he's also kind of aggrandizing himself, it incites him to reflect on his own mortality and imagine himself in that position. So the first tune that we're going to play for you is St. James Infirmary Blues. And so as we play it, we are going to be expressing ourselves lyrically, I hope, but we are not going to be so overcome with that emotion that we lose track of the organizational principles and the logical elements that make jazz work as a kind of tradition you can learn and you can, to some degree, master to varying extents. So that's how we're going to start. And there's almost kind of a historical trajectory of what we're doing because we're going to start with some blueses and we're going to kind of move to more contemporary stuff. So we're going to play St. James Infirmary Blues for you now. Thank you. Nigel Regan on the alto saxophone, everybody. We're very lucky to have this man with us here today because he is a force to be reckoned with. So, before we continue, I'll just look at a couple more of these Stoic ideas that I've been kind of playing around with in preparation for this. So we already touched on the blues and this idea of a reflectiveness and control exhibited or exerted on one's emotions. So I want to look a little bit also at this next idea, which is this organization of artistic ideas in response to contingency and change. And one of the one habit that's associated with that and that's necessitated by that is that of discipline. And so for us as jazz musicians, there is a certain amount of learning and study and listening practice that is demanded of us in order to produce a virtuous jazz solo, shall we say. And so there are a couple of Marcus Aurelius quotes I came by that I thought spoke to this idea. One of which is where he says, there are several different ways in which a man's soul may do violence to itself. And he says, for example, it wrongs itself when it is overcome by pleasure or pain, and when it does not know what it would be at in a business, but runs on without thought or design, whereas even the least understanding ought to be aimed at some end. And so as we're here on the stage taking solos and listening to each other, and these ideas are kind of unfolding organically, there is some kind of thought or design that we have to impose on what we're playing so that we're not overcome by pleasure or by pain. And I think maybe you heard that in the last tune where we're kind of riffing on each other and we have some sense of what we want to do before we actually do it. And in this way, I think the musical practice of jazz could be looked at as a sort of model of practice or living in a broader sense. And this next quote, Marcus Aurelius says, "The way to despise the pleasure of a fine song," and he's, I believe, advocating on behalf of despising this pleasure, right? He wants that pleasure to be set aside. In order to despise the pleasure of a fine song, a well-performed dance, or the athletic exercises is as follows. As for the song, take the music in pieces and examine the notes by themselves and ask as you go along, is it this or this single sound that has subdued me? You will be ashamed to confess the conquest. Thus, to lessen the diversion of dancing, consider every movement and gesture apart, and this method will hold with respect to athletic contests. In short, all things but virtue and virtuous acts abate by taking them asunder, and therefore apply the expedient to all other parts of your life. So the reason that I found this quote relevant to what we're doing as jazz musicians is because in order for us to achieve the kind of emotional and organic sound that a musician hopes to produce, you have to take the music apart in pieces. And I know some people will say that if you dissect a joke, then it's not funny anymore, or something to that effect. And I think we would both disagree in terms of music that analyzing it or seeking to understand it in some way robs one of the affordances of pleasure. And so I think these two things can actually work together. And so we can, and I don't know if you want to speak to this at all, but in terms of transcription, that's something jazz musicians do all the time, is take the notes that are there, played by someone who you see as a master of the form, and you take it apart literally note by note, and you are thinking to yourself, was it this note or this note that really, facilitated a reaction from me? And so when we play, all of that language is kind of incorporated into what we do. Let me remind myself the next thing here. How are we for time? Okay, so we really have like 10 to 15 minutes. You want to skip Body and Soul? Do you want to skip Body and Soul? So I think the improvisational nature of this is that we kind of got up here not knowing exactly what we're going to do. So we're kind of planning it out as we go. But there's a tune that I want us to play for you guys that I wrote and has actually never been performed anywhere before. So you could think of this as a kind of premiere. So I think we're going to play that for you. The name of the tune is Quiet as It's Kept. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you, everybody. We ended up running a little longer than we expected, but we'll take 5 or so minutes of questions for anyone who wants to ask them. You want to get your mic ready? Mic? Get your mic.
So you played your original piece, whose name is escaping me right now, but right after you were talking about the Marcus quote about anatomizing music and how jazz musicians transcribe to try and understand. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how that idea went into your process of composition.
Well, that's a great question. I believe I wrote that piece before cobbling this idea together with the whole Stoicism thing, but the principle still applies in that a lot of the ideas in that piece, for people who are familiar with some hard bop from the 60s and people like Horace Silver and Cannonball Adderley and Bobby Timmons, there's a whole sort of tradition that I have listened to, for pleasure, but also kind of dissected for my own understanding. And both of those levels of engagement went into, whether consciously or not, went into the composition of something like that. So it's very much in that tradition and inspired by that tradition, and that kind of practice of deliberate, methodical taking apart, this piece wouldn't exist without already having done some of that work.
Fantastic, first of all. Name of the second tune, and I was trying to count, but I don't think I placed a time signature at any point in that. So what's the majority of it in? Was it 4/4?
Hello? There we go. So that second tune, Ben, the first tune we played, St. James Infirmary, was a blues. The second tune we played was also a blues that was written much later by the saxophonist Charlie Parker, and that was called Chi-Chi, C-H-I-C-H-I. And the time signature of that tune is actually 4/4. Right, so a lot of Charlie Parker's music is very, very rhythmic and very almost drum-like, his melodies. So even though the song is 12 bars long and it's in 4/4 time, the syncopation, the entrances of parts of the melody on off beats. For example, an offbeat, if you're counting, an offbeat would be like ba 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 and so on. That'll kind of mess with your head sometimes when it comes to the time of a song.
And I'll also just add that we were messing around with it plenty ourselves in between, so that probably contributed to the rhythmic disorientation.
This arrangement, and you can do it with any arrangement, but this particular duo arrangement of saxophone and piano, both of us are both very responsible for the time and the tempo and all that, but because of, we don't have like a drummer or a bassist or anything, it's just two of us, we have a lot of room to kind of mess with it, and sometimes it just gets messed with, even if we don't want it to. But yes.
We're going to have one last question.
Okay, yeah, great, guys. So there's this concept in Stoicism of role ethics, and basically it has to do with, like each of us as individuals have different roles that we play. Like I'm a son, I'm an uncle, I'm also a musician, and that's, I think about, like, that's a role that I play. So I'm just curious how you guys would respond to that. Whether you're Stoic or not, how does the role for you as a musician play into your life?
In life, you mean in life or on the bandstand, or both? Well, the thing about jazz is, especially on the bandstand, is that it teaches you to be flexible, because it is very true that on the bandstand everyone is playing a role. In a typical arrangement where you have a drummer, a bassist, a pianist, each of these musicians has a role to fulfill, but at the same time these roles are flexible. For example, the bass, everyone solos. The bass will solo, the drummer will solo. The drummer can play the melody, accent the melody, but there are some roles that are generally accepted to be, the traditional role for an instrument. And so being a jazz musician can teach you how to be flexible and how to handle playing multiple roles in your life as well, which is why I think it would be a very valuable pursuit for any Stoic musicians or non-musicians who just want to learn. It's a great music, and I do believe that anybody can appreciate and learn it.
I'll just add to the idea of roles. When we're up here and one of us is taking a solo, or even both of us are kind of soloing at the same time, in order for this arrangement to work, which, as Nigel said, it's very sensitive, the piano-sax duo, it's very easy to kind of get mixed up or get the roles confused. You have to be listening very actively, and I'm sure you heard one of the things I love about Nigel's playing is oftentimes I will kind of feed him an idea, and you'll hear him sort of play around with it after the fact. And I think that kind of speaks to how in this music and in this tradition, there's a great sense of liberality in that everyone is included and everyone has something they can contribute, but you also need to know kind of when is my role to be the creator and when is it to be the supporter, and kind of how do I find the balance between those things.
Also, could I get a show of hands? That thing he's talking about, like him feeding me an idea, me playing it back, the two of us playing off each other. Just a show of hands. Who in the audience noticed that happening? All right, good.
Good listeners.
That's good. We got some good listeners. Just checking.
All right, thank you all so much. We really appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you so much. There's an amazing neo-Stoic quote from the 16th century that says, "Musicians were the chiefest professors of philosophy." And I think we heard that today, so wonderful job. So now we are heading to workshops. So this is our moment where hopefully each of you can find one of these 3 workshops. The descriptions are in the program. And one is staying right here, so you can just stay if you would like to stay in your seat. Phil Yanoff will be leading that workshop. It's going to be discussion-oriented, I believe.
I'm going to use a chair, and I'm going to hand out handouts, and that's the way we're going to go.
So there'll be talking, community engagement in this room, and then, yes, would you like to talk?
I'm going to be doing some collage, memento mori collage. Follow me upstairs if that interests you. And Brittany's down the back. Follow Brittany if you want to do some journaling with Brittany.
So the journaling is happening on this floor, so just kind of around the corner in room 155. And for the memento mori vanitas, it's upstairs. And you'll kind of start seeing. And then Phil's is here.
Yeah.
All right? So enjoy, figure out where you'd like to go, and we'll see you back
In 1 hour.
in an hour. Is that a break?
Oh, there's a break. There's
There
a
is
15-minute break.
There'll be more
4:45.
snacks and beverages in the lobby after the workshop, and then we'll be back in here for the
4:45 for Sharon LaBelle.
next. Yes, I know. All right, thank you all.
All right, see you back here.
I would love that, actually. Yes, please. What would be the easiest way? Thank you. Thanks for having us. We've never gotten a view. We've never gotten a view. Thank you so much. That's exactly what I know. I just want to know how it would work in terms of the topic and the music.
I haven't seen it. I kind of like know it.
Yeah. I had this. Hi.
I didn't bring my phone.
Might be able to see Ben's. Yeah.
But I do know that movie it takes place in like the South. Like Reconstruction.
In case you decide that you want to hear each other, the second mic as well.
You're one of those two. Oh, is he the guitarist? No. I have a terrible memory for characters. I think it's working. I'll check back up on that case, but I think it went through.
No, that's
I'll be
why
around.
I really like that Ben made that point.
Oh, yeah,
It's
where she's
extremely
got it.
active. And I even like a lot of musicians, you know, there's that
Sure.
example, but even the craft of music
Okay.
definitely for anybody who's
No worries.
like
No, that's totally fine. I'm just glad to have a record of it. Thanks.
to focus on something like a pursuit.
Bring it in. Thank you so much.
I'm never used to doing this in a chair, so I want to see how this works.
Yeah, that's great. Thank
I
you
am
so much.
shocked by the people that are sitting way behind me. I mean, like back there, like I have never bitten anyone. Let's just let her do this for now. It's comfy for them. But thank you. All right, there's more. Hey, the extras. Can you just hand this to the boy in the back? In case he sees someone come in, he'll hand them to him. Now, what? I don't know where they went. I thought he was handing it to him. Yeah, it's okay. He's probably walking out there wondering, what am I supposed to be doing with these now? Yeah. It's all good. It's all going to work out just fine. All right, you can hear me okay? Is that right? That's good? And, all right, is this small enough? I'm the kind of cat that like gets people together, and I promise I'm going to talk to you something, and I will answer all the questions that you've got. But I'm going to kind of work you through an idea of how to do some stuff on your own. But how about, just real quick, you tell us where you're from, right? Where in the world are you? And we'll just pop. I mean, it's a quick thing. Hi, I'm Larry.
I'm Larry. I'm from Boston. I'm Ian. I'm also from Boston. Kevin from Salem. Andy from Texas, but I live in Seattle.
Okay. Excellent. Glad to have you all. Just rocking, right, to discover there's 2 other people from Greenville, my hometown, right here in the room with us. That's awesome. Here's the thing. I want to help people. I am on a secret mission, and I'm hoping that you're going to be part of this mission with me. This has been pretty good, hasn't it? Hanging out.